Blog Talk Radio.
Choices, decisions, frustrations, and pain. Knowing I'm going to forget her someday. While I still can, I'll challenge all my loved ones, every friend, to look inside their hearts and understand that I will love them. I will love them while I still can.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood here in Minnesota. Blue skies. I think spring has finally arrived, and we are done with the snow, so a pretty happy camper here. This show is really going to be a pretty special one for me. It marks 13 years of my dad's passing, and this week it'll be 2 months of my mom's passing as well. So been a pretty powerful time for me as far as reflection. Mom, as you all know, has struggled with dementia, had struggled with dementia for 30 years, and my dad died of brain cancer. And so they had just both taught me so much and changed my life, and that is why I'm doing what I'm doing now with Alzheimer Speaks. For those of you that are new to our show, I just want to give you a little bit of background before I introduce our first guest. Alzheimer Speaks is really an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. That was one of the things that I really struggled with as a care partner for my parents, was finding resources. And I really wanted to develop something that made it easier for people to have a simple conversation and to find support and, again, get ideas, tools and products that would help them. And so I truly believe that by joining forces and sharing just this everyday knowledge base that we all have about life with dementia, we can remove the stigmas that are attached to memory loss and help those in the trenches live purpose-filled lives for many, many years to come. At our core, we believe that collaboratively we're gonna win this battle, and I know that we're making a powerful difference because Dr. Oz and ShareCare recognized us as the #1 influencer online for Alzheimer's, which was just a pretty phenomenal recognition. But that isn't me. That is all of us joining forces together, just doing those, small little clicks of liking the website, liking the radio show, sharing the blog, if it's with your Google Circle, if it's with your Facebook friends, if you've got a Twitter account or LinkedIn, whatever mode it is, it matters. So don't for one second think that you don't have power to make a difference. You all are already. And so I really want to thank you for that. Today, like all shows, we're going to have just a real simple conversation, and we would love for you to join us. And you can do that in 2 fashions. One, you can call in live to the show at 714-364-4757. Again, that's 714-364-4757. Or you can use the chat box here on the show and type in any questions or comments. I will be monitoring that throughout the show. Now, I also like to give a few shout-outs before we jump into the program because, again, I'm a big believer in resources. And if you're looking for resources, don't forget to go to our main website, alzheimerspeaks.com. There's actually a resource directory there, and you can input information into it as well as dig information out of it. But a few of the organizations I want to mention I think are just is so helpful to people. And so the first is Alzheimer's Disease International. So many times people are looking for an association somewhere in their community and they don't know where to start. Alzheimer's Disease International can answer that question for you no matter where you live in the world. They're the association of all of the associations. And so, check them out. Again, that's Alzheimer's Disease International. There is also the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, which does miraculous work when it comes to holistic help, meditation, diet, exercise, and they've been around for over 20 years. And again, it's really a wealth of information. They also have some great educational tools there. Then you've got the Lewy Body Association, the Frontal Temporal Degeneration Association, and the National Aphasia Association. Each of those deal with different types of dementia. And we need those specifics when we're walking this journey. The Alzheimer's Studies group can be found by Googling, or you can go to the Alzheimer's team on Facebook, and they have a couple of great clinical trials. One is their Tau trial, and they are also just rolling out a new trial for frontal temporal lobe, which people have been screaming for. So check out the Alzheimer's studies.com or go to the Alzheimer's team to get more information on either of those trials. And then, of course, I'd be amiss if I didn't mention the Purple Angel Project, which is so dear to my heart, which was started by our friend Norms McNamara over in the UK, who's been living with dementia for 7 years now. And the Purple Angel Project is really just a symbol that we want to be as well known as the pink ribbon for breast cancer. Dementia deserves to be noticed. And so anybody at any level can participate in that. So if you're interested in that, shoot me an email. I will get you the information. So if you're an individual or if you're a business, again, you can help raise awareness by utilizing that symbol. And then on the recreational side of things, I always like to mention Choral Health, which has kind of prescriptions for music. Puzzle with Me, which is a great way to be able to sit down and have an adult puzzle that is designed for people with dementia. Jiminy Wicket, which again is the croquet game that's intergenerational, and it can be used as a family, or it can be used how they are really going after it, going and matching up schools with memory loss communities and having the students play one-on-one with people with dementia. It's absolutely a fabulous way to engage and have a lot of fun. So let me go ahead and introduce our first guest. Very excited to have author Eric Rill with us. He wrote An Absent Mind, which is a novel, and it's a very interesting book, easy read, and I think will get you asking a lot of questions of yourself on how do you think about this disease and what is your family like. Eric was born and raised in Montreal, and he now divides his time between his residence in Panama, and he does a lot of international travel. He has 2 sons and a diverse group of friends scattered all around the globe. His hobbies include trekking, scuba diving, and collecting antique carpets. Eric first ventured outside North America when he was 13, and he was sent to Switzerland for this summer to perfect his French. And that was the beginning of his traveling life that would eventually lead him to visit over 100 countries. And I got to tell you, I am so jealous. I have not traveled near that much and would love to at some point in my life. He graduated from Cornell University with his bachelor's degree in political science, and that was just before receiving his MBA at UCLA. After graduating school, he joined an international hotel chain where he held several executive positions in the United States, Canada, and abroad before he became president of Worldwide Hotel Group. And at that point, he was responsible for over 500 hotels. So this is a man who knows how to get a job done. Ultimately, he started his own company buying and managing hotels in the U.S. and in Canada. And at the same time, he began to write. And he's really got a nice way with the pen, I have to tell you. His first diary, started with the diary and then kind of short stories, all of which initially, he filed away in a desk drawer, which many writers do. But eventually he realized he was more creative than corporate. And so he sold his business. He moved to the Caribbean, and he began writing Pinnacle of Deceit. And he followed this with Innocent Traitor, and now his latest novel, An Absent Mind. And so welcome to the show, Eric. You've had quite the journey in life.
Well, I didn't realize it was that long until you went through it. So thank you for having me.
No, well, it's nice for people to get a little bit of history because especially when it comes to writing, I think so many people think about it and then they're like, but, I don't have that background. Well, you didn't either, and most don't. It's just something that it kind of gnaws at you and it comes out. And so I'm glad that you pursued this. And did you say when we were talking earlier that you've written 10 novels now? Is that correct?
No.
Or was it 10 years?
My third
10
novel.
years. Your third novel. Okay.
For 10 years, right, yeah.
Okay, see, I'm getting things screwed up already. So there we go. That's why I ask questions. Okay. Well, can you also give people, before we start, what motivated you to write this book? Have you been personally touched by the disease?
Yes, actually, I started with the two books that you mentioned, which are thrillers, and I was on my third one. My father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and we went through his journey. And I didn't write much at that time. And then my agent said, "Well, okay, it's time to write another thriller." And I just had this feeling that I really had to write something about Alzheimer's. That this was just something that was just inside me that I had to get out. So my agent, I should now say former agent, because she didn't like the idea of me writing about Alzheimer's because she was happy to make money with me writing thrillers, told me that wasn't the kind of book that one should write. So I actually continued on with my next thriller, and then halfway through I just gave it up, and I said, "I'm sorry, but I'm going to write this book on Alzheimer's." And although it's fiction, I felt that one, I'm a fiction writer, and two, I felt that I could get my message across through fiction.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Well, it's an important message, and it's too bad, that she didn't see the need and the importance of the type of book you have written, because it is so powerful and it affects so many people. And people need and they want information. They want different perspectives. And so I thank you for taking the risk of in following your heart in terms of moving forward with writing. It's never an easy journey, when you've been touched. And I think those that have been touched by dementia, it's life-changing. And it makes you, anyways, it did make me stand up for what I believe, and it made the lines in the sand really easy to see. Did it do that for you at all in terms of dealing with your father's dementia?
Yes, absolutely. I think that, I remember the day that my father told me that he had Alzheimer's. He had invited me to this stuffy club that he belonged to, and to have lunch, and we were sort of sitting there in this very formal dining room, and he's usually a guy that had a great smile, and he was upbeat and everything, and he looked absolutely terrible and very sad. And he said, "I just came from the doctor," and my first thought was, "Oh my God, he's got cancer, he's got heart disease, he's going to die." And then he said, "I've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's," and I was actually relieved because I, like many people, felt that Alzheimer's was just about losing your memory. So I said, well, that's great. He's not going to die. He's just going to lose a little bit of his memory. And then, of course, we all know what Alzheimer's is now. Certainly your listeners know. And we went through this terrible journey, sweet at times, but frustrating and terrible at other times. And so I decided that I needed to learn as much as I could about this disease and to I won't say educate people because I'm not a doctor, but at least to share my feelings about what Alzheimer's really is and let people know that it's not just about losing your memory, but it's about losing the total function of your mind and body in a very horrible way.
And I think that that's a really important factor for people to know. And you're right, most people think, oh, it's just losing the keys. And it's way bigger than losing your car keys in terms of what it affects and who all it affects, because this is not a disease that just affects one person. And I think that's a real misnomer, too. This affects families and communities and work environments to a much greater impact than other diseases. And we need, we need that knowledge. We need that support. We need to make this conversation okay to have, which is, one of my goals personally is like, let's just talk about it. Let's get out of the closet. No one should be embarrassed because they have dementia, or if a loved one has dementia, but we seem to kind of crawl in this shell and not understand and be too afraid to even discuss it. Did you find your family and friends really struggling with the disease with your own father?
Yes, I think that what you touched on earlier is about Alzheimer's having a stigma, much like cancer had a stigma years ago. And so people don't like to talk about it, and family members who endure some of the things that the patients do, and I always say that it's not the person, it's the disease that's doing the talking or the action, but when they are on the receiving end of aggressive behavior or cursing or even worse, they don't want to tell anyone about it. It's almost like their dirty little secret that they just don't want to share. And that's what I think is great about you and the work you do, is to help bring this to the public eye. And that's what I tried to do in the book in a what I call a soft approach, because I think it's easier for someone to read fiction and to see the story of a family and what happens than it is to, say, buy a nonfiction book. I think the people who are going to buy a nonfiction book are ones who are already touched with Alzheimer's in their direct family and want an answer and want to know steps 1 through 10 or whatever that is. What I tried to do more so was to bring all this out, but in a non-threatening way, where they're reading about a family rather than reading about, say, their own family.
Mm-hmm. Well, and one of the things that I really loved about your book, well, there were several things. One, I now that I'm going to be 55 in June, love the large print, and that just made it so much easier to be able to see, and just even how it is bound. I can see in the middle, and so layout and design was really simple. The titles of your chapter are interesting, but throughout the book, what I found myself asking and reflecting on was how my family dealt with this disease. And you come out and talk about a lot of things that we don't talk about, but are going through people's minds. And I think that is a brilliant way to get people really looking at this disease different and how it affects so many. Where is it in here? I've got 10 million pages marked up here, but in one you have it's a chapter called My Last Place on Earth, and you talk about the unraveling. And you talk about, I'll just read it here. In a way, it'll be a blessing when my mind is totally gone, when I'm a vegetable, slouched in a wheelchair, like many Alzheimer's patients on Montreal's west side, I'll probably make a pit stop. You kind of go on and you're projecting and reminiscing what this is going to be like. And we sometimes, I think, sidestep those conversations, the chatter in our head, and we don't publicize them and we don't share them with others. But those things are happening with, I think, both the person diagnosed as well as those that are caring for them. And I think that they're important conversations to hear and to have with one another. When you were writing this book, did you get any pushback from your family, or did you let them know that you were doing this at all? Or because sometimes I know that can be an issue.
Yeah, well, but first of all, the fact that it's a work of fiction, it would be different than if I was chronicling what had happened to my father or had written a memoir. So, but no, the answer is I really didn't get any pushback on it. I think they were all touched by what happened with my father, and I don't think they saw it as much as I saw it as a way to educate people, because that wasn't the role that they were taking. They were part of the family, and as you say, part of a family, which might make one question what they themselves are going through. But I think it would have been different if it would have been a nonfiction book.
Yeah, well, I have found sometimes, in talking, because I interview a lot of authors, that even when they're saying, "Hey, this isn't our story, it's a story," family still gets sometimes a little queasy about what's it going to be, and well, that kind of happened, and people might think it's, and I didn't really say that, and stuff, and so I think again it just gets into everybody's different family dynamics of, trust and paranoia, all that kind of fun stuff that comes out with us. I
think you're right. I mean, and I have had people say, "Oh, so part of that could be me, and part of that could be you, and part of that was this." So, I mean, obviously, I couldn't have written the book without the knowledge that I had and the journey that I went through with my father's illness. So there is a lot of, shall we say, our stuff in it, but there's also a lot of, fabrication, because I want to go beyond what his journey and our journey was to show as much of a journey as I possibly could that may or may not have been relevant to his specific circumstances.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned when we were talking offline, you're going to be going to the Alzheimer's Disease International Conference in Puerto Rico, which is May, I think, 1st through the 4th. And you're going to be talking about your book there, which I think is absolutely fabulous. Are you excited about being part of that international conference?
I really am. I mean, I'm very excited that they are going to feature my book. So I think that's wonderful that they found, value in that. And then from a totally different perspective, to be able to be front and center for all the latest medical research that they're going to be presenting is, very exciting. And then thirdly, of course, to be able to meet some of these people, I think would be great.
Yeah. I'm jealous of not being able to be there, but I had another engagement I was planning on going, and then just couldn't make it work into the schedule. So, because I have not been to that conference, and there are so many people that I want to meet, and I try every year, and it's like, if something comes up, then I get sidetracked, but. One of these days I'm going to make it, because I just hear fabulous things about the conference and the connections that are made, with that. Now, as far as the book itself, and again, it's called An Absent Mind, what kind of response have you been getting from people on this?
Well, it's been wonderful. It's been touching. I think the second week it was out, it was featured on mariaschreiber.com, because, as you know, she lost her father to Alzheimer's. So that got a great response. And then when obviously I hear from people who I know, but when I look at some of the reviews online on Amazon, what I'm seeing are people are telling their stories. So, I had my story and my book has its story, but they all don't just write, so it's a great book. They write and talk about their perspective, what happened in their families, etc. And some of them make me tear up. It's just it's been wonderful. I mean, I didn't write this book to make money. I wrote this book because I had a message to get out, and so the more that people read it and respond to it and say things like they laughed and cried, that's for me. That's wonderful.
Oh, that's great. Can you do any stories of others stand out to you that you could share? I think it's important for people to understand when you read something like that, kind of that cause and effect of what it is you've created, because you create a safe place for people to come out and really kind of expose and acknowledge their own journey. And it sounds like that's really what's happening.
Well, I can remember one particular gentleman, actually, who sent me something through my website, and he basically said that he had seen the excerpts on my website, and it looked wonderful. He didn't think that he could read the book because it was too difficult for him, that he had lost his father 20 years before, and I didn't hear from him again until I saw the review on Amazon where he obviously had read it, and basically said he was afraid of going to the same place that his father had been to. But on the other hand, he found reading it was very cathartic for him, and finally made him come to grips with what it was, that he had sort of hidden himself for 20 years. So that was one of the stories that touched me greatly.
Wow. Well, and like you said, with this man, he didn't think that he could go there. But again, you created a safe enough place where he could go. And I think that's one of the most fascinating things in terms of dealing with this, because there's so much pain, in this journey. And there can be a ton of joy, too, but we all seem to focus on the pain,
Right,
That's kind of
right.
how we motivate people in society, by pain and fear. And it gives them hope and, like you said, this release of carrying that burden, and I mean, I really can feel that now with, I just lost my mom the end of February. It's the anniversary of my dad's death, and, my first holiday without her, this week will be 2 months, she'll be gone, and then Mother's Day, and it's just like, if I could think of all those things, it's like, well, I'm just going to curl up and crawl back in bed, and just say, forget it, and just kind of wallow in my grief. Or I can shift that perspective and really look at the gift of the relationship, the humor, and realize that, you can't have that pain without an extreme amount of love. And and that's a gift. And so in terms of, your storytelling, you've done such a fun job with this book in terms of, the laughter and the tears. Can you give us in the book just an example of one section that you just had fun with, that just kind of made you smile when you were writing it?
Yeah, I mean, I think toward the beginning, when Saul, who is the family patriarch who ends up getting diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and he's sort of going through his conversations about how he had wet the seat at his daughter and son-in-law's place, and how he for him it was normal to do that because he had to pee. So it was just something that we wouldn't really be talking about. And of course, Alzheimer's patients lose their inhibitions, and they say kind of funny things that they probably wouldn't normally say. Or even at the very beginning of the book, the very first part where he actually walks out of his house without his trousers on, was kind of humorous, but sad as well. So the book is sprinkled with humor because there is humor, and thank God there's some of it because the rest of it is so terrible. But obviously, gradually, as he goes through what he goes through, there's less humor, and then there's more sadness. But what I tried to show in the way that I wrote the book was that each of the people, he, his wife, his 2 adult children, and the doctor, speak to the reader in their own words, and they really don't speak to each other unless they're referencing that they spoke to each other. So they're looking at the same thing through completely different eyes. It's the old story about there's no truth, it's your version and my version. And especially when one of the people has Alzheimer's, or even the conflict within the family, the struggle within the family, where they see it, one sees it one way, one sees it the other way. I think that made it a little more interesting, relevant to what this is, rather than having written it in the third person.
I agree. I definitely agree. It's like I said, it's just a great flow. You've got a nice way of balancing the highs and the lows out and bringing out the different perspectives, in the book in itself. Now, your dad passed away in 98, so. And your mom cared for him during that time. Is that correct?
Yeah, she cared for him until she couldn't handle it anymore. Very much like what's in the book, and then we placed him in a facility which had mostly Alzheimer's patients. And so, but when he went into the facility, he was not aware that he was going into the facility. So I think we all felt better about that, rather than dragging him, kicking and screaming. He really just really wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, and that's always a tough transition. No matter who you are or how prepared you are for something like that, that's one of the, I think, toughest things that any of us can ever go through. In your book, is there a story that you depict about kind of family squabbles or miscommunication that you'd like to share?
Well, the 2 adult children are very different. One is the daughter is very calm and very responsible, and the son is not. And they both have different ways of dealing with each other, and with their mother and with the father. So for me, what it really shows, I mean, this book is about Alzheimer's, but it could be about another disease, and it could just be about family struggles and dysfunction. So I would say that this all comes out in the way that they view either their responsibilities toward their father or toward their mother, or they view their sharing of what's going on between the 2 of them.
Okay. Yeah, and family dynamics always gives us such lovely twists and turns when it comes to dealing with just about anything. And I think most families, if they're honest, can relate to the dysfunction that shines its head. And as you said, what is reality? Everybody looks at it from a different perspective, and there is no right, there is no wrong. It is, and we have to be able to work our way through that, and try to deliver the best care possible to a loved one. What would you say is the most difficult thing when you were writing the book in terms of trying to portray the struggles? Was that and again, I know that this isn't all about your family, but you're drawing, I would imagine, on some of those experiences in terms of trying to really depict some of the simple but constant struggles for both those that care and those that are diagnosed.
Well, I think from his wife's point of view, her name is Monique. She points out at one time, no one asks anything about me. No one cares about me. And here she is giving her soul and everything to a husband. They may or may not have had a great relationship as things went on, but they were sort of resigned to their relationship. But she became an excellent caregiver and did everything for him. And yet, at some points, she feels guilty because she's complaining, or feels that she's not doing enough, or feels that she's overwrought and has to take Tagament and has her nitro in her purse, and no one cares about her. So that was a very true thing to write about, and that's one of the things that I wanted to get across in the book, is that the primary caregivers need to get help, need to get outside the family, can't just do it all by themselves, or they will get sick, either mentally or physically. And so that was one of the important things that I wanted to get across to everybody.
And that is very, very true. That a lot of times the caregivers get ill or even pass before the person who is diagnosed. And it's sad that as a society we haven't figured that out yet, because this isn't just about Alzheimer's and dementia. This is with every disease and every situation. When we are caring for somebody, if we put them totally first and kind of ignore our own needs, it is going to wreak havoc within us. And why we haven't figured that out as a society always kind of amazes me. But again, it's those stigmas of how you care and those expectations that we put on ourselves and that we think others are thinking of us. I think sometimes that drive us to ignore our own bodies and what they're calling for in terms of need. Which is really too bad, with that. With this book, do you see yourself doing another one regarding dementia at all, or do you think one was enough for you? Or
I honestly don't know. I'm at a crossroads right now. I've got this half-written thriller that isn't just thrilling to me anymore, having written this book. I mean, this book has opened up a whole new world to me, and might be a mission that, or probably will be a mission that I am going to continue with. I don't know if I will continue with it as far as writing another novel about Alzheimer's, but which is possible. But I will continue my mission to do whatever I can in this fight.
Mm-hmm. Now, with your book, are you doing a lot of speaking engagements with that? Is that something that's coming into play, or that is intrigue to you at all?
Yes, I'm starting to do that. I've done a lot of radio, and I've done a lot of interviews, some speaking engagements, book signings, etc. But what I'm really trying to do is to find an audience that, for instance, like at ADI down in Puerto Rico, where there are people who can spread the word. That's I think what's really important is to get the word out there. So I'm doing whatever I can do. I mean, anyone asks me to do anything, and if any of your listeners have anything, book clubs, whatever, I can do it by Skype. I can do it in person. I'm just out there to get the word out.
Okay, wonderful. Well, that's great to know. I think there's so many ways that we can help raise awareness, and it would be wonderful. We got to get you on. Oprah's not even around with her book club, is she anymore?
No.
I don't know. It would be interesting to start a book club on this. Just even on this topic, because there's so many great books out there. A few years ago there wasn't much to pick from, and more and more people have been writing, and there's a lot more resource, and I just find that this is such a great way to develop chatter. With this. I do a lot with the memory cafes, and a lot of times I'll give them, I get a lot of books to review, so I'll have them actually help in terms of reviews sometimes of books. And this one I wasn't able to get to them, but I'll give them afterwards so that they can look at it and pass it around, and they love all of the resources that are there for them. So
right, and Lori, also I'm very happy to, if there are people who can't afford the book who you think it would help, you can get back to me, and I'm very happy to forward some books for free. As I said, for me, this isn't about money. This is about getting the word out, and to speak to that, even for this 3 weeks or so, because of the ADI conference, and a lot of people, as you know, who go there don't have a lot of money, so I've had the publisher basically cut the price in half on Amazon just so that, more people will be able to have access to the book. But if there are people that you know of who can't even afford that, I'm more than happy to pass the book on for nothing.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot of people in that situation. That's one of the biggest struggles that people have, and that's one of the reasons, for myself, that I even started Alzheimer's Speaks, was to try to get resources out there that are free to people. One of the ways that might be a really nice route to do is even, and maybe you've already done this, but to send your books to the various libraries, because, the people that can't afford Amazon do go to the library, and they're always looking for resources, and that would be a great way to be able to get those to the public, in a lot of different fashions, all over the place. So just a thought there. But if you ever want to send me books, I can easily disseminate those at conferences that I speak at and various things too, and raise awareness on that. So I appreciate you doing that. That says a lot about who you are, and that this is more than just a book. It really is a mission, and it's a nice way to also honor your family, even if it's not about them. The book probably, my guess is, wouldn't have been without your family situation to begin with. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but
no, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right on that. Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. If anyone is out there that is interested in asking Eric a question, please feel free to call in at 714-364-4757. Again, that's 714-364-4757. Or again, you can always use the chat box. I monitor that all the time, and we can pull your question or your comment in that way as well. When you decided to write this book, did you read a lot of other books regarding Alzheimer's and dementia, just to kind of see where you were, what your competition was out there, or was this just something you just said, I'm going to do it? And this is my vision.
I think it was the latter. I have read some of the books. There are very few books of fiction on Alzheimer's. There's Still Alice by Lisa Genova, which was a big hit, and I guess you can go back to The Notebook and Away from Her, and but when you go on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, and then you look at for Alzheimer's fiction, generally what comes up is Alzheimer's nonfiction. There's just, very few. So there wasn't a lot to compare it to. But frankly, as I just wanted to write this book the way I wanted to write it, and so I didn't read those books until after I had actually written this one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, and I think, because so many times, when people are getting advice about writing a book, they tell you to go to the bookstore and look at them, look at the colors, look at the shapes, the sizes, and how they're written and what the voice is and stuff. But I think that can sometimes skew someone who doesn't have a strong voice as well in terms of what they're doing. So I think, to me, I think that's one of those things you got to be a little careful with too, because I personally believe everybody's got their own story to tell, if it's dementia related or not. And I think it's important for us to hear the different voices and the different journeys. Because there isn't a right or wrong with this disease. It just kind of is. Anyways, that's been my, I guess, my angle on it is, everyone's voice needs to get heard, because it makes us think in a different fashion. Even if it's testing us and our thoughts and our beliefs. I think I see that as a good thing. And I know not everybody would agree with me on that, but, their loss. It's kind of how I look at that one. Do you think, and when you were writing this book, do you think that this novel was going to be something that someone who hadn't been touched by dementia would be interested in reading?
Well, feedback. Yeah, I had hoped so, because as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, this is a book about family struggle. I also consider kind of a love story, again, I can only go by what people either tell me or I see the reviews on Amazon. There's a lot of people that just had no idea what Alzheimer's was about. And mentioned that it gave them an education like they just didn't know it at all. And then there's other people who said, yes, it is about Alzheimer's, but it's also a love story, or it's also a story about family dynamics. So I was hoping to touch all of those bases. But again, more importantly for me was to educate people about what Alzheimer's is, and to let the caretakers know that they're not alone. Okay.
And I think that that's a very, very important factor as well. I think when you are writing a book like this, there's so many facets to it. Dementia is, like you said, just one. There's the love story, there's the relationship, there's the family dysfunction, piece to it. And, when you can twist them all together and really come up with a powerful story like you have, it's interesting to, I think, a wide variety of people, if they've been touched or not by the disease, just like any novel. I might read a murder mystery. That doesn't mean that that's happened in my family. And sometimes I think people categorize stuff like that, when it comes to topics like this. And I find that kind of interesting too, how we do that as a society is, in my opinion, a little bit backwards sometimes. But that's just.
Well, I think also,
just the way. Mm-hmm.
Right. I was going to say, I think also there's people who, and it seems mostly men. I shouldn't say that, but I think it is this way. Who don't want to know about it. Like, if I don't know about it, I'm not going to get it. Women seem much more interested in finding out about it, even if they don't know anything about it. But I find men tend, when it comes to this subject, if they don't have it right in their family, they don't want to know about it. It's like, don't talk to me about it. Maybe I'll get it, or maybe someone will get it who I love. So I know that's maybe sexist in general, but I kind of feel that is overall what the story is.
Yep. No,
I guess
no,
I can say that because I'm a man. So.
No, and I think that there's a lot of truth, to that. And I think that those walls are starting to break down a little bit more with the conversation because of books like yours and because of the radio show and all the different facets out there. Because, in my belief, all of these modes help kind of remove that fear and that feeling of isolation. And not that we have any of the answers, but there's a big factor of not feeling alone, in kind of the puddle of mud, where you're just,
right.
drowned in
and
the
I think
quicksand.
also, right, and I think that say that you would be the primary caretaker and just finish this novel, then you would realize that you're not alone, and you'd realize that what you did is what everyone else does, and how you felt was what other people feel, and it's okay. It's okay. Nothing's 100% perfect. You just can't be 100% perfect every day, even in a normal situation. So that's, I think, one of the important messages.
Now, I have a question that doesn't really have to do with the book, but I'm always interested. And if you're not comfortable answering, please, just say so. But because your father had it, is that something that's in the back of your mind at all for you as a family member?
Sure. Yes,
and
it is. It is.
Have you thought about getting tested at all to see if you have the gene? That's something some people ask me all the time. Are you going to get tested? And, I've chosen not to, but I'm always curious with others what their thoughts are.
Well, the problem with getting tested, of course, is that it's that there's no good answer if it's what you don't want to hear, because there's nothing you can do. Well, I shouldn't say there's nothing you can do about it, but there's probably nothing major you can do about it other than what hopefully we practice all the time, which is exercise, diet, less stress, and more sleep. So if you're doing that anyway, then there's really not much purpose in getting tested at this point, because you could end up with, as I discuss in the book, you could end up with this APOE4 gene or two of them. You have more likelihood of going on to getting Alzheimer's, but it's not a slam dunk that you're going to get it, just the same way as if you have two of the APOE3 or 2 genes doesn't mean you're not going to get it. So it's some people just want to know everything, but my thought is that it's probably better to just live a healthy life the way, exercise, diet, etc., for all diseases, not just for Alzheimer's, for cancer and for heart and for diabetes and for everything else.
I agree. I like I said, I've chosen not to get tested too, because it's you just don't know, and then it can affect so many things in your life. I have a couple of friends that go out of the country and pay cash to get tested every year for their cognitive status, because they don't want it to show up on their insurance. But they're very adamant that they want to know, and so they've done the destination healthcare stuff, which I find interesting as well. The different modes and approaches that people are going to try to find some kind of peace, with all of this. But bottom line, it's a pretty big unknown factor,
right?
And it's a baby disease in my eyes. I mean, we know so little. There's more and more reports coming out all the time, but I really struggle with so many of even the studies and stuff, because they're such small samplings, and there's I just think the numbers, even though they're high, I think they're very low, just because we haven't done proper diagnostics, with people, and there is such great fear. A lot of people go to the doctor and not mention, the issues that they're having, and so, I really kind of step carefully when I look at a lot of that stuff, and not to be afraid, but just to be cautious, and just to say, we know a lot less than what we think we do. with all these numbers and studies.
And I think they're making progress as far as diagnoses is concerned, but they're not making much progress as far as cure. And there was an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal just today, written by a researcher. Basically, what he said was that the U.S. government would give out these orphan acts, which meant that if there's some rare disease, that you had longer for your patent. And what he's suggesting is because it takes so long with Alzheimer's, et cetera, that by the time they would come up with something, their patent would probably expire, that they think that the government should do that as well, is to give these people a much longer patent. Because unfortunately, it's all about money with these big pharma companies, and they're the only ones who are going to be able to do something. So it is a very interesting article, and you might want to take a look at that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I can't believe how fast our hour has gone by. Wondering if there's any last story, or kind of episode in the book that you'd like to share with our audience at all that might intrigue them, and then we can talk about where they can purchase the book and get a hold of you if they're interested in having you come and speak and so forth.
Well, I mean, I'm just leafing through to find something that's not going to give away the story, but there is kind of a humorous thing where Saul is left alone, and he all these subscriptions to Time Magazine and Newsweek come in, and then his wife enters the door, and there's someone there to put aluminum siding on their house when in fact it's brick. And so, he was the guy that was there for every single telemarketer that was there. You just tell him to come on over. And evidently, one of the Alzheimer's blogs, the woman said that this reminded her of exactly what her husband did. He would just get everyone over to the house to do things and made absolutely no sense whatsoever. There are several other chapters that I would, love to comment on, but I really don't want to give away the book. So I'm going to stop on that one.
Okay, nope, not a problem. It's like I said, it's written really nicely. It's an easy read, and I think anybody who purchases the book and sits down to read it, I think it's gonna they're not going to want to let it go, and they're going to find themselves asking a lot of questions of themselves and others. And if they've been touched by the disease, I think they'll dive deep pretty quickly. And if they haven't been touched, I think they're still going to get pulled into the possibility, and they're going to walk away looking at others differently, wondering, could they be dealing with this? And not talking about it. And to me, that's one of the biggest fascinating pieces with this whole disease process is how many people are close to us that are dealing that we don't know because we're so afraid to have the conversation. And so I love books like yours that help us have the conversation and take a real look at the whole picture of life with the disease, not as it. Eric, what is the best way for people to get a hold of you then? Is it to go to ericrill.com?
Yeah, that would be the best, and there's a place to contact me, but my email address anyway is author@ericrill.com, and it's ERICRILL. And I would love to hear people's comments, either whether they get the book or not, and if they do get the book after they read it, I'd love to hear their comments as well.
Well, great. Well, I can't thank you enough for spending time with us this morning and sharing your book, and I wish you all the best with the endeavors of the book, and tell everybody hi for me at the Alzheimer's International Conference, or Alzheimer's Disease International Conference. I wish I was able to be there in Puerto Rico May 1st through the 4th. I'm sure that'll be just a fabulous, fabulous time.
Great, and thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your time and appreciate all the work that you're doing in this fight.
Okay. Well, you have a great week now. Thanks again, Eric.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye. Before I pull our next guest in, I just want to give some kind of mid-program highlights. If you weren't able to listen to the last radio show, we talked about picking a nursing home, and that was really an interesting conversation. And, you know, what do people need? And there were some great resources that were given out for that. And so that show was on April 15th, and like all of our shows, they are, they are archived, so you can listen to them at any time that you would like to. Our following show next week is about having fun and getting creative with dementia, and I'm so excited to have Dr. Jutta Ludwig with us. Jutta and I work really closely on the Memory and Alzheimer's Cafe. She's one of the mentors here in the U.S., and she has written just a fabulous book that has hundreds of ideas on different types of activities, and so that'll be always a fun conversation with her. Also, this afternoon we are going to be having our Dementia Chats webinar, and that starts at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 Central, 1 if you're Mountain Time, and noon if you are Pacific Time, and that will be posted on Facebook, and it's also on our home page, or if you go to our About page, you can find information there at alzheimerspeaks.com as well. Our last Dementia Chats was April 8th, and we talked about the Easter holiday coming up, what has changed in terms of celebrating with holidays since diagnosis. We talked about getting in-home services, which is always a big question. When do you do that, and what do they do, and do you trust them? How does that work? We also talked about how people with dementia handle technology changes, and then we kind of wrapped up talking about support groups and are they helpful, and how about family? What do they need, and are they getting what they need to help support their loved ones with dementia as well? And then on the blog, we just had a few articles. One was about there's going to be an educational breakfast that is done with Health Partners and the Alzheimer's Research Center here in Minnesota. And that'll be June 5th. And I've got a couple of tables. It's a free event. There will be an ask. But if anyone is interested and going to be in Minnesota, I would love to have you be my guest. So just reach out to me, and we will coordinate that. On the 20th, our intern Michelle wrote a great blog called A Picture's Worth 1,000 Words. And then on Easter, I wrote one called Dementia Like Easter. What egg are you attracted to? And it just, it was one of those things that just kind of made me reminisce a little bit, with this first holiday again, on with the anniversary of my mom's death, and, how are you going to frame things? So anyways, let me introduce our second guest. Barbara Worthington is the founder and owner of Caregiver Cards. And Caregiver Cards is a product that allows for a care partner dealing with a person with dementia, or, it also works for someone who is deaf or hard of hearing, or maybe has speech or memory problems or developmental disabilities too. So these cards can be used in a lot of fashions, but it gives them an alternative way to communicate, and yet it's really simple, and it's just based on picture communication or cue cards. I am going to go ahead and let Barbara tell us a little bit more about herself and her background as to why she developed these cards. So, Barbara, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lori. I'm excited. I hope you can hear that, excited to be here.
Yeah.
I don't know how I can follow Eric and your conversation. That was great. I just have to say that. That was wonderful.
Oh, good. I love doing the show. It's just kind of fun and simple conversation. That's really all it's about is just having a simple conversation. So what got you to develop the Caregiver Cards? Were you personally touched with someone in need of alternative communication?
Yes. Yes, the short, simple answer is yes. I have a big family involvement with Alzheimer's and dementia, and not just that, but alternative communication. Because to be honest, my journey into Alzheimer's started quite a few years ago when my grandfather, that we affectionately called Papa, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and it was at the same time that I was attending college and studying health education. So I really immersed myself into the knowledge of Alzheimer's disease and helped out here and there, understanding, of course, better ways to communicate. But I hadn't ever been, I guess you'd say, schooled or understood about picture cards or nonverbal communication as much. And then you fast forward a few years, which would be about, 2006. And my grandmother, who we called Grandma, she acquired viral encephalitis, and it was traumatic brain trauma. Instead of a cold sore going out onto your mouth, how we normally get, it actually went up into her brain. And so, okay one day, not the next. And, and so she acquired dementia from that. And that was at the same time my husband and I were planning on moving home with our little girl, who was about 1 at the time. And we said, you know what? She was beating hospice. Not many of us get that opportunity. And so we said, let's just take care of her. Let's just bring her back to her home and give her some, dignity in her life right now. So I became her full-time live-in caregiver and taking care of my daughter at the same time. So let's just say caregiver stress was very constant in my life. And I kept noticing that we had a disconnect with verbal communication. And I would leave little bitty picture cards for her, or I would write words on familiar objects to help orient her just a bit. But to be honest, Lori, I didn't come up with the Caregiver Cards idea until just a short while after she passed away. My daughter that I mentioned, she wasn't developing, I guess you'd say, on the normal plane, but she was our first, and we were taking care of Grandma. So we didn't catch on to development milestones. And the long and short of it, she's diagnosed with autism. And so I really had to start to understand alternatives to communication. And we used picture cards with her, and I saw great success. And I said to myself one day, I said, you know what? That would work tremendous with someone with Alzheimer's. I could see it working to a small degree with my grandmother. So I researched it, and I just started actually drawing. All of these cards are hand-drawn illustrations by me. I would draw it when my girls, I now have 2 girls, were in bed. And just a labor of love just to create something to help caregivers who have similar problems, or who, I guess you would say, might be in my shoes, but not understand the importance of visual picture communication. So that's the way it all came about.
Wow. It's interesting. In our memory cafe, we have one woman who has made up like a 3-ring binders of pictures because she found it helpful. And I thought, oh, man, these cards would have been so great for her to have had ahead of time, because, she just she was just in the trenches trying to figure out, what's going to work. And one of the things that she has done, and I didn't see that in yours, and I don't know if there would be a way to expand this or if it would even make sense. But one of the things that Kathy had done on hers was she got the logos of the different restaurants and shops and banks and entertainment centers that they would go to. And that would, because then they could discuss where they wanted to go. If they were going to go out to dinner, they could pick. by the symbol, by the logo. And I don't know if you would need company permission, but it would be like, oh, would that be a cool way to get them to be dementia friendly? If that could be added into your pack, with that.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
I do think we would run into hurdles as far as, permissions. But on the cards themselves, there's at least, I believe, 4 blank cards. And so someone could certainly add their own and personalize it. And I welcome comments like that, too. I constantly expand on what illustrations are available just because of that, just because of caregivers communicating with me like, I love it. Where was this ahead of time? And, could you add, whatever it is to help them? Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is very, very, I think, interesting. When you started doing this, can you give an example of, maybe we all have those kind of light bulb moments where it was like, man, that worked really slick, and you were kind of surprised.
Sure. You know what? There's a great one. There's many that come to my mind, but I have 2 in particular. One that I still volunteer with a local memory care place because, I can't get away from them and they can't get away from me. I love them. I love the community, even though my grandparents are no longer. Although, just to backtrack, my dad currently does have frontal lobe dementia. He has brain cancer right now. So we're kind of revisiting a lot of this. But I can talk about that in a moment. But the examples, so I'm volunteering one day, and there's the sweetest lady. She's sitting next to me, and the problem is not only is her communication difficult, it's impossible for me because she's speaking Spanish. She reverted back to her native tongue, which you'll find, of course, with people that are English second language, and they regress. So she's speaking Spanish, and I have zero clue what she's saying. But I'm paying attention to her gestures, and she's getting animated, excited, if you would, because I'm not understanding what she's saying. So I look at her, and she's pointing a lot to my face in that area. So I open my caregiver cards, and in the first section, there's the 6 categories. And the first one, the basic activities of daily living, there's a few that have to deal with the face. And the one in particular I went to was called hearing aids. And I myself wear 2 hearing aids. And that's what it was. That's what she was trying to communicate. So it was cool. She saw the card. I got her attention to look at the card. I said, hearing aids? And she said, in English, yes, hearing aids, went down and wrote the word in English, and then went right back into Spanish. But for that moment, we had a connection, and that's what this is all about. We connected. She was able to calm down and decrease her agitation, and a lot better for both of us to be around. It was amazing.
Wow.
That just really sticks with me. And it's an angle I had never thought of with the cards, is using those for people with communication barriers due to English not being their primary language. Another example that sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to share. This is great. Go ahead.
Another example that I remember fondly is, again, I was volunteering, and we were on a field trip. And during the course of the field trip, I get to hand out snacks. And there was a gentleman with me who was completely nonverbal. And so I hand out the refreshments, and it was water bottle. And I told him, I said, it is time to drink, kept it short. And he just smiled at me. So, of course, I smiled back. And then I showed him with my water bottle that I was drinking, and again said, it's time to drink. And I got the same response, a smile. So then I took out my cards, and there's a cards in the emotion section, emotions, that says thirsty, and it has an illustration of someone taking a drink out of a glass. And I said, here, we're thirsty. And I pointed, got his attention towards the card, and it was a quarter of a second, and he started drinking. the water. Because, again, we had that connection. He wasn't just looking at some silly girl taking a drink and thinking, yeah, that's great. She's thirsty. Good for her. You know, he understood him to have a drink at this time.
Well, and
so
one of the things that I really like about this is, I think your pictures are really done very, very well, but you have things that sometimes can cause so much frustration, I think, for both sides, like pain level. You know, where does it hurt and how much does it hurt? You know, to be able to disseminate that, the emotion cards, you know, do you want a cigarette or go play bingo? You know, simple yes or no or go or stop or danger. Just all of these things that we just forget in terms of how we communicate. And then you have in here, too, the Please Breathe. Can you tell people what Please Breathe stands for?
Yeah, absolutely. I put that in the emotion section, and because the emotion section really deals a lot with behaviors. And that's what the Please Breathe is about. It's a mnemonic learning technique, if you would, to remind not only caregivers, but anyone communicating and being alongside people with Alzheimer's, living with Alzheimer's or dementia, that these are the causes for behaviors. The whole goal is to look past the behavior. Often we get stuck on, oh, great, grandma, dad is mad, or they're wandering. And that's just a way to express. That's their style of communication, that there's some underlying thing going on. And the thing, as you would call it, is what Please Breathe is. So what please stands for is the P in please is for pain. And I put that first because almost always that's the number one trigger is pain. It's the first one I look for if someone's having behaviors. It's pain. And then next with the breathe is B. Are they bored? Are they needing someone just to be there? Are they needing an activity? Then R is restroom. Simple. Do they have to go to the toilet? E is exhausted. Are they wore out? You know, does this person need a break? A, anxious. So are they excitable or nervous? Is there a lot going on and stimulating? T, thirsty. Is it time for a drink? H, hungry. Is it mealtime? And then lastly, E, out of the Please Breathe, it is environment. And that's paying attention to, is it too hot, too cold, too noisy, too quiet, too many people? Just pay attention to the surroundings. Because trying to remember all of those things off the top of my head, I even struggle, and I'm versed in this. So having a tool, extremely helpful. So I just set out to make it. This is the whole goal of everything I'm involved with is Caregiver Cards, is simple, just keeping things simple. It's, for lack of a better word, reducing the thinking needed to get the message across, period.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that's my mission, I guess you would say. So that's what Please Breathe brings to the caregiver.
Well, and I think that is just, it's such a, it's a simple acronym, but it's so powerful because, part of, the problems that I see that people have is that they don't investigate what is causing the issue. Why is somebody fidgeting, or why are they upset, or why are they happy even? What's the deal? We have to look closer at things, and so much. I mean, if someone has to go to the restroom, that's a real easy fix. Or if they're bored, we all get a little fidgety and anxious and or thirsty. These aren't complicated things to do, or hungry, and we can fix them once we identify, once we communicate, once we slow down. And so I think that's a really, really important piece of the puzzle when we're dealing with people. Excuse me?
No, I interrupted you. I apologize. I apologize.
Well, and I think the Please Breathe is something too that you don't have to just use for someone who needs other things than normal verbal cueing. They don't have to need the cards in order to make this work. I mean, that's a phrase that you can use all the time when you're caring for anybody at any level. Slow down and just think. About Please Breathe. So if it's a child or a spouse or a friend, that still can be very effective, I think, in all those cases. So I think that that is one of those things when we get in this kind of care partnering mode, sometimes we think the tool is specific to that person. And most of them we can use in all aspects of our life. It's just a matter of us expanding, how we use them and reframing them a little bit different. How long have you been doing the cards? How long have they been out, and what kind of response have you been getting from people, Barbara?
The cards themselves are, I guess you'd say, relatively new. I'm not even into the second year, and just starting it was, for lack of a better word, a soft start, where I just did the local community and then started putting them online. Because, again, it was just to help. My goal was just to help a few people, and then people said, this has to be available to others. I didn't go into this for, I guess you'd say, a business, but I believe that it needs it, and so it kind of drew me in. And so, it's not even 2 years. I've been involved with Alzheimer's for 14, going on 15 years now. So I love it. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm involved in the Alzheimer's community. I couldn't imagine doing anything else, to be honest, right now. It's just wonderful.
Great. Well, one of the things that I would like to do, if you're comfortable with this, is on Alzheimer's Speaks, on our About page, we have a section for the memory cafes. And with that, I have a toolkit that's there. And I would like to, under that toolkit area, add this as with a link for people to be able to go to engage, because I think it's a great tool and would really help a lot of people out. If you're comfortable with me adding that there, I just place a picture and a link to that.
Absolutely.
If you'd like.
I think that's great.
Okay.
And I love the memory cafes, and I am so glad that you're bringing them to the States. I really am. I love them.
Well, they are wonderful.
Resource.
Do you have one in your area?
No. So I need to speak with you about how difficult it is to get them set up, because, anyways, we can talk about that later, but I understand the purpose and what the memory cafes facilitate and how much they can help support. I love it. Yeah,
they are pretty fabulous. That's for sure.
Making a dementia-aware community, and we need to stop shying away from these type of topics. Whether it's mental health or dementia, it doesn't matter. It's here. Let's open up the conversation. It's okay. I can't tell you how many people, when I was caring for my grandmother, friends and family, that my grandmother was social, let me tell you. I mean, she was just a kick. Love her. And to see all of these friends and family just stop coming by. And I don't believe any of them were mean. It wasn't that. It's just they didn't understand how to relate. Or all too often that I hear from people is they're not the same person. And stuff like memory cafes will help see people that, no, they really are the same person. You have to relate to them a different way. We have to adjust, not them. And so anyways, that's a little bit of my passion coming out there. I don't want to take over on that.
Yeah, no, but I think that is it's great to hear that in your voice. I think it's really it's important stuff for us to hear and feel the passion, because I think the passion is really what is going to drive the change and move things forward. It's going to offer people to be able to be brave enough to make a change and to do something different, and that's a really cool thing, to happen there. Now, do you have some other upcoming products and stuff that you're going to be working on at all, or?
Sure. I'm in the process of trying to make these into foreign language cards themselves, because of course we know Alzheimer's does not discriminate against nationalities, and again for also the persons who speak their native tongue. So we're looking at making them into foreign language cards, because the pictures are pretty universal. All you have to do is change the wording. And then the other goal is to make these illustrations and then, of course, add some more features and make a mobile app, so that even though the booklet is not cumbersome and the booklet can be, it's bound by the little 3-ring binder, so you can add or subtract as you need. But still, having a mobile device so that even hospitals, more hospitals, because I've had some hospitals purchase, but just make it more accessible, for lack of a better word. And then, of course, myself, I love to do speaking and training, so that's also out there, too, for people to contact me and just gain a little insight into the importance of alternative communication and person-centered care when it comes to dementia care.
Okay, which is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Do you have certain topics that you like to speak on, or? There's of course the communication one, and I call that one "I Need You Now More Than Words Can Say." I know it's a spin-off of the song, but it's true because a person with Alzheimer's really does need us. And, what comes to mind is when I speak with people and they want to know, so what is it you do? And I tell them that, I created these cards for Alzheimer's. And, of course, Alzheimer's has affected so many of us. And usually the person talking has a story, my mom or my relative. And so then they get to talking. And unfortunately, I will say, they often say, Mom always comes to me and say, where's my mom? Or where's the car? I need to get, we need to go somewhere. And I'll tell her, Mom, don't you remember you gave the car away? Or don't you remember Mom and Dad died back in 1978? And I always, just try to, as gently as I can, not tell them they're wrong, because then that puts, the wrong way, but try to open their mind up to communication. And what your loved one is actually expressing is not necessarily that they want their mom and dad now. It's saying that they're scared. They're nervous. Look past that and see, again, just like the please breathe, look past what they're saying and get them to open up about their feelings. Say simple words like, tell me about it. Get them to talk about mom and dad or talk about their feelings, because that's what they're looking for, is that person to be alongside. So that's kind of what that topic, I Need You Now More Than Words Can Say, really touches on. Okay.
So, it's, again, just getting people to look past, I guess you'd say, behaviors and to see the person that still exists. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. How would people know when it's appropriate to start using these cards? Because my guess is that some people will wait until communication really kind of comes to a halt, but these could really be introduced earlier on as well, just to create habit and more familiarity with them, is my guess. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, and that's often one of the first things I'll hear when I'm speaking to people about the cards, and they'll say, oh, yes, so-and-so has Alzheimer's. And I said, well, what have you thought of the cards? Well, they're not there yet, always. And I say exactly what you said, Lori, is that not yet, but even if they're on medications now, they will eventually. You can't stop the stages, if you would, from coming. So as caregivers, you're dealt with 100 things to do at once. Do you really want 101 when the time comes, or do you want to be well-versed in it? What I would suggest in that case is exactly what I do with my father. It's a good time to talk about him, actually. My father, Cliff, is 28 years ago, he had terminal brain cancer, and he beat that. So I guess we're survivors in my family. So needless to say, unfortunately, in the last year, that his brain cancer has returned. And the location of it is in his frontal lobe, his right frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe really deals a lot with sequencing and emotions and feelings. So my dad, he has difficulty in knowing when to end a task and when to start a new one. So he could be spending a long time in the shower, and family members will say, well, gosh, he spends a lot of time in the shower. I wish he would stop, being that way. And I say, it's not that. He just doesn't understand that what's next. So what I've done with the cards is I made them into a communication cue board, if you would, an activity board. And so I put the cards on this board and in order, like good morning, take your medicine, breakfast, all of those picture cards I have. And when he's done with one task, he can flip the underside of the board up, and it says all done, and then goes on to the next task, and then finishes. And then whoever caregiving can change out the cards as they relate to his schedule for the day. And that's what could be used now for caregivers for their loved ones with Alzheimer's. Or even in the nursing home facilities, just to have that in the patient's room, a sequence or a schedule to help keep them on task. And in doing so, it decreases their anxiety because it's always what's next in the head. And that takes away at least some of that anxiety to make for a better relationship for who's ever caring.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. No, that makes a lot of sense. I'm so glad that, I knew that you had done these cards a while back, but I'm just so glad that we're having this time to chat because I think it's just such a important factor, and I think it will help people a lot in terms of this process and help remove frustrations. When we have alternative ways to communicate, we can just breathe a little bit easier, So that'll be great.
And it changes the mindset. What I noticed, beyond just using them, it changes your way of communicating because we're very verbal, and it gets you to, like you say, pause, and it gets you to speak in steps, if you would. Keep things short and non-complicated. It gets you to focus on your nonverbal communication, so your tone, your facial gestures. So it really does help to make really healthy habits.
Wonderful. Now, it sounds like you do a lot with the Alzheimer's Association in your area. Can you tell people where you're located and what types of things that you're involved in?
Sure. I live in a little town in Oregon called Winston. We are known for our wildlife safari, so it's a zoo that you can drive around in. It's really cool. And in fact, my house is situated on the back side of the safari, and sometimes in the evenings we can hear the lions kind of roaring and feasting. So, yeah, it's a little surreal. But so it's basically a southern Oregon town, and we have a very high population of elders and seniors. And so it actually presents itself well for a product such as myself, but not just a product, it's just being involved in the senior aging and Alzheimer's community. So, I just, even though I'm relatively young, I'm 37, and so people, when they see me, they don't quite piece it together that I'm involved with the Alzheimer's. And it's just a passion that I have that I just can't shake. And doing so, last year I was presented with the opportunity to help bring the Alzheimer's Association's Walk to End Alzheimer's to our community. And it's basically the first one that we've ever had with that Walk to End Alzheimer's theme. And they were being extremely considerate to us, telling us, if you don't make goals, don't worry about it, it's your first year. And the committee looked and said, hey, Barb, do you want to chair this thing? And I said, I guess, sure, sounds great. I'll do what I can do, even though I've never chaired an event. And this last year, we superseded our goal by 150%. And
wow.
That's not just telling on me, that's saying our community. We're not afraid to talk about Alzheimer's, and we're not afraid to bring the topic to the community. And in doing so and raising so much money, we also brought in more education services and training to our little community of Douglas County, Oregon, and it's just awesome. I mean, really awesome, for lack of a better word. So that's a lot of what I do. I'm just still involved, and my daughters come with me. Katie, who's now 9, the one that has the autism, that actually, if I can speak, she's so involved in this business that the illustrations, if she could not verbally tell me what the cards were, they didn't go in. And she still even now takes out the cards, even though she speaks better now, but she still even now takes them out and communicates with me with them. But she and my other daughter, Gabby, we still go, and all of us volunteer at the memory care place. They love it. They love seeing children. They love having a friendly smile and a hug and just a visit. So that's a lot of what I do now.
Oh, neat.
And I'm still on the walk committee and proud of it. And we're in the sponsorship phase, so I'm wearing many hats.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Now, if people go to your website, they will also, you've got like a video there that kind of shows people how to utilize the cards as well. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that too, because I think that's an important piece, because we're kind of describing it, and it, to me it sounds real simple, but for some people that visual will help them, and you do have that as a resource there. Now, if people are interested, if they have an idea for a product or something like that, do you ever talk with people on that and see if you can collaborate? Or some people might just have an idea and want you to take it and run. Is that something that you'd be open to?
Absolutely. Yeah, anyone can email me at Caregiver Cards, that's the plural, at gmail.com. And I do. I read every email. I listen. I respond to every request. I can't always say yes, but, I just had a gentleman the other day who used to be in law enforcement and is a volunteer fire paramedic, so first response, and he said, have you ever thought of expanding on some of the cards and making them accessible to EMTs? He said it would be helpful, because we pick up a lot of people who are not able to communicate at the moment, and we could use something like this. So, yes.
What a great idea. What a great idea. I'm actually been working with some here, and I will keep that in mind when I'm talking with them. That's a fabulous idea.
Right. So expanding, that would be expanding on the commands and prompts section, to have a little more verbiage, if you would. So I'm always open, because this is what I strongly feel, the Lord has me on this journey for a reason. And I often struggled with the whys in life, why my grandparents had Alzheimer's, because they were amazing people. I grew up loved and respected and cherished by them. And, when you see bad things, to put it that way, happen to good people. And then, of course, my daughter, you never want anything to affect your children, even though she's wonderful. I love her, seeing her eyes through the autism, but still those whys in life. And so I feel that it kind of pulls me into this calling and, for lack of a better word, this mission to help people in many communities who are faced with these challenges. I really want to help them overcome challenges.
Mhm. Well, that is absolutely fabulous. You can just hear the passion in your voice, and that's just, to me, that's just so nice to be able to hear and see when people are in need. It just it just elevates that level of trust that you're not out to take somebody for a ride, but you're really here to make a difference in people's lives in a positive fashion, and that's massively, massively huge. So I thank you very, very much for that. Are there any examples that you want to highlight with these cards again on how to use these? I mean, they're a little oversized from like a normal deck of cards, but they can easily fit in a purse. So I mean, they're very simple to, I think, carry around, and to be able to utilize. And I love the idea of the emergency response people, or even the hospitals. This would be ideal in the emergency rooms and the doctor's offices too, to have these in. So if we've got professionals listening out there, you really should get these cards. A fabulous, fabulous tool for sure.
That you're asking, I have them broken down into 6 categories, and there's the basic activities of daily living, which are things that we need to survive. So, eating, bathing, dressing, things like that. And then I have the instrumental activities of daily living, and you kind of need them to function in a society, but it doesn't make or break you. So that would be taking care of your money, your medication management, things of that, transportation. And then I have activities, so just things that you do, like bingo, you mentioned, art, and then commands and prompts. And I like the commands and prompts a lot because, if you have your loved one out in the store with you and you want them to hang out by the shopping cart, there's one that says wait. If they're anxious or, when is it time to go, I have a card that says time to go, and it's got a picture of a clock and then the go symbol. So it's simple with the words it's time to go. I have a clock picture that's soon, and it's just got a little sliver of time being taken away. And so it gives a clear description of what you're trying to say at the moment. And then, of course, the emotions and feelings cards that gives them a voice for how they're feeling, or maybe helps you approach and saying, hey, are you hot today? Are you feeling a little anxious? And then the last section is it's kind of a hodgepodge. It's an events, people, places thing. So it has like a calendar, holidays, if you would, family members for people, places, and then, of course, places. It's just general, even though I love your idea with the corporate, with the logos, so to speak. But general, it could be any place, bedroom to a restaurant to a shopping center. So that pretty much highlights the cards. It encompasses a lot, and I want to say there's really not much out there as far as targeting for Alzheimer's and dementia. If you look for development disorders such as autism, you'll find things called PECS cards. They're helpful, but they're geared for children. This is geared more toward the adult community, and oftentimes, and unfortunately so, I've learned in both situations with caring for my grandmother and my daughter is that when you're in stressful situations like this, often people do take advantage of that, and they charge a lot of money. We're talking hundreds of dollars for something just so to help you care for your loved one, and I find that outrageous. I don't like that. So, and in doing so, I priced my cards. If I'm just going to say, it's $34.69, and paper isn't cheap. And the type of paper I have is more than paper; it's heavy duty wipeable cardstock, so they can last and endure. And I did that with a purpose. I'm not in this to make, rich, profitable. I'm in business. But you understand what I'm saying. I'm not meant to make a lot. I really want to help people and to drive the business of helping caregivers. So I don't want someone to have to choose between, and I really afford this, I need it, but yet mom or dad really needs, to buy that extra box of, briefs or something. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I price point very inexpensive.
Well, and very much appreciate that, because it's, everybody who's dealing with this is really struggling. I shouldn't say everyone, but the majority of people are really struggling, just to be able to pay their medications and put food on the table and things. So it's very important, and shouldn't be downplayed, the importance of being cost effective, for people to be able to tap in, because we can have all the tools and products, but if people can't afford them, we've kind of lost the point in terms of what it is we're truly offering people.
And there are free things too. I do want to stress there is free content on the website. I have a light version of the card, so if you just want to print them off on your own printer, and it's got a sampling of, I believe, 12 or 16. I think it's 16, that you can use just to see how you like them and to understand it. And that's free. And then the Please Breathe tool is there. And then I also have something called the ABC Behavior Chart, which is a fancy way of saying antecedent, behavior, and consequence. So it's just a way for you to track if your loved one is displaying a certain behavior. It gives you the tool to see when it happened, what caused it, so what was happening prior, and then what was the effect of it, what was the outcome. And I guarantee you, I know it sounds crazy, that it's like, oh, great, one more thing to do. But if you start charting behaviors down and seeing that pattern, then you can identify what, again, is really causing these problems, and then you can remove whatever is causing them, and that makes your life a lot simpler. So that's available, too, for a helpful tool.
Okay, wonderful. And do you want to give our listeners your contact information as well, so they know how to get a hold of you?
Sure. It's our website is www.caregivercards, so CaregiverCards.biz, B-I-Z. It is not .com. That will take you to some greeting card company. But so I stress the .biz for the handle on the Caregiver Card site. So that's a great way to connect. And we're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. The storefront is also there, so you can purchase the Caregiver Cards directly that way, and we ship them out. And then also Amazon also sells the cards, so if you prefer to go Amazon route, you can certainly do that. Okay,
wonderful. Well,
and then
Barbara,
my email is the caregivercards@gmail. So if anyone wants to speak with me, it's a great way to get a hold of me.
Okay, great. Well, I really appreciate the time that you took with us today to share this fabulous tool. I think it will help a lot of people in the future. And like I said, I am just I added you to our resource under the memory cafes, and I believe that you're in our resource directory too. Are you not?
I don't know. I have not followed up on that.
Okay, well, that's something we'll definitely want you to get into, and I don't input people because that's all I would do all day long on that. So that is something that I'll want you to check. And if you haven't input yourself into the directory, I would encourage you very much to go ahead and do that. And anybody can put information into the directory by just going to alzheimersspeaks.com. Again, that's alzheimersspeaks.com. And then go to the gold button at the top that says Partnering Options, Share That You Care. And from there, you just become a member, and your information won't be sold, so you don't have to worry about that. And then once you become a member, you can go and start adding things into the resource directory. So, and you don't have to own it to list it, because this is about sharing resources. So if it is a book or a video or a blog or a newsletter and you have a link to it, you can go ahead and put it in and let others know that that information is out there, because nobody's really going to care if you share their product, service, or tool. With that, we haven't run into that as being an issue with that. So we would love to have you be part of that, and you make it a little bit easier for people to find your cards, and again, some of the free services that you have as well there. So great. Well, again, I can't thank you enough for being with us today and taking the time to share your story and to share just a piece of you and your history and what makes Barbara tick. That's always very interesting for all of us to know and understand what's behind the woman. What drew her in. So thank you so much again for being with us. And do you have one last thing you want to say to our audience? Otherwise, I'll go ahead and wrap things up here.
I want to thank you very much for having me. And if I want to share anything, I just want to say that you're really not alone in this, those out there caring for their loved one. And I know it seems very difficult because it is difficult now, but you're here for a reason. You are extremely super for stepping up and caring. And I'm sure big things will happen. I never would have dreamed I would be here now in the situation and look at it. So there's a reason for this, and just embrace that. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for your time. Have a brilliant week. And again, you can go to caregivercards.buzz. That's caregivercards. I said .buzz, didn't I, instead of biz?
Yeah. I'm not that big yet.
You won't get too far on that one. Thank God someone's listening to me and correcting me. Yeah, to .biz. Oh, that's too funny. And again, I'll really be sharing the word on these. In fact, I'm going to a conference this May, beginning of May. That's why I can't go to Puerto Rico for the Alzheimer's Disease International Conference, but I'm going to bring this as a sampling with me for people to see. And this one is for ministry, and I think this would be ideal for churches as well. It's really, there's no limit to where these can be used. So again, thank you so much for your time and energy and all the work that you're doing. I really appreciate it, Barbara. So you have a great day. Okay?
You too.
Okay, thanks. And don't forget to reach out to Eric Rill, who wrote the book, An Absent Mind. Again, it's a wonderful book. And Eric is ERIC, and then Rill, RILL.com. And you can order his book right from him, or you can always get that on Amazon as well. And again, I would like to just give a reminder that we are doing the Dementia Chats webinar this afternoon. I'm very excited. We're going to have some people from Waterloo with us, and they are really interested in hearing from the voices of people diagnosed. They want to figure out what is needed in the future. And so they're going to be doing a survey, and we're going to be having, I think, a great conversation regarding that. And you can go to Dementia Chats either through the website. Just click on the home page. You'll see something that says Dementia Chats, and it'll show you how to enter. It's free of charge. We start at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, that's 2 Central, 1 Mountain Time, and noon Pacific Time. Would love to have you be with us. Next week on the radio show, we're going to have Yuta Ludwig, and Dr. Ludwig is one of our mentors for the Memory and Alzheimer's Cafe. She's just a wonderful personality, and she's launched a new book which is all about creativity and dementia and how do you engage. So again, would recommend that you check that out. Don't forget, if you're looking for a study trial to get involved, AlzheimerStudies.com has a new study clinical trial you can get involved with for frontal temporal lobe. They also have the Tau trial going. Alzheimer's Disease International, if you're up for a trip and want to go to Puerto Rico, again, their conference is May 1st through the 4th. The Purple Angel Project, if you want to get involved with the global symbol to help raise awareness, contact me at Lori, Lori, at alzheimerspeaks.com, or just go to our website. There's a big contact button. You can shoot me an email from there. And the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, again, if you're looking for information on food and exercise and meditation, they just do a wonderful job there as far as holistic modes. So, I can't wait to talk to you next week. Have a blessed day, and we will talk soon. Bye now.
Hi everyone, this is Meredith from the Senior Fitness with Meredith podcast, where I discuss all things for seniors, from fitness, your health and wellness journeys, how to be all over strong and beyond. I also have my mini podcast called Motivation with Meredith. It's a great, quick motivational pick-me-up for your days. Join me, listen now, search for Senior Fitness with Meredith on your favorite podcast platform.